even looks really, be more present with the process and not get stuck on what is or isn't happening, but the awesomeness that is taking place. And we will be recording now. And let's bring y'all back to the center over here on IG. So good morning again. This is Dr. Z, Greater Self LLC. This morning we were talking about thriving through transitions. So what this looks like, good morning over on IG. What that looks like is, there's these points in your life when you realize it's a really, really good idea to make some changes, to say yes, to say no, to be comfortable with things being different, like not always the way they have been, but it's time to thrive and do better things, become a better version of yourself. Becoming a better version of yourself doesn't always look like how other people want it to look, because it usually means they're going to be losing access to the version of you that they're accustomed to and used to, that afforded them the opportunity to be the greatest and best version of themselves. So that may be, maybe you've always been the go-to person, or you're the strong friend, or you're the friend, family member, whatever that may look like, that always took care of everybody's needs, took care of their responsibilities, paid the bills, you got all the stuff. And then there's a certain point where you realize you might not actually be okay. And it's time for you to start looking at, how can I get myself to a space where I'm good? And like I said, this can be professionally, this can be personally, it can be in any realm that you're looking at making improvements. But while you're moving through these transitions, it doesn't always seem like it's going to be great. There's these beautiful pictures, and you can look at a ballerina, for instance. When you watch someone dance and perform, you get the experience of seeing a polished, finished version that is beautiful and elegant and all the things. What you don't see, and I know that you all have seen these memes online at some point, what you don't see is underneath those point shoes, and specifically point shoes, I don't know who created them, but they're just not nice people. But underneath those point shoes, what you end up seeing is bruised toes, broken toenails, like corns, bunions, just a lot of different things that allow everyone else around you to have the experience of the beautiful dance or piece of movement, while the person that had to go through it and had to do it endured some really not so cool things to be able to give that presentation in the midst of them becoming that amazing version for your entertainment. And this is another thing to look at. For other people's entertainment, you may be harming yourself in the background. You may be overgiving, oversharing, saying yes when your body literally just lets you know, absolutely not. And you're like, I'll totally sign up and go do the thing. I'll prepare the stuff. I'll be the support person. I'll train the people. I'll house I don't even know what. I'll host the workshop, the webinar, the training. And in the interim, on the inside, what's happening for you is not okay. What's going on for you physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, whatever those things are, there may be things that you really needed to take care of. And you really needed to give yourself the time and the permission to explore, what do I need in this moment, so that you can take care of it for yourself, but also be in a space to recognize opportunities to seek support and help from other people that either have maybe gone through it before you, or totally know what you're talking about and are like, I got you. Like, I remember when I did this transition of ... It may be from employee to a business owner. It may be business owner back to employee. It may be from single to married, divorce, all the different things, a parent, single parent, or empty nester, or all the different categories that can be a transition. And in the midst of those, there isn't always a super clear blueprint. People may share their experiences, and it's totally cool if you memorize every single thing that everyone has ever told you before. I cannot. So with that being said, there is a huge benefit in recognizing it's okay for me to not know all the answers, and to also be cool with, all right, I'm gonna have to do some stuff a little bit differently. In order for me to thrive in the midst of this transition, going to need to take account of what are the silver linings that are going to be super supportive for me first. When we fill ourselves up first, we are totally able to overflow and give to other people more effortlessly, but it allows that giving in those transitional periods of time to really be from a full heart and of abundance and love, and not from a, if I give this, someone else may give me something back. If I give to this person, or I give to this organization, or I connect with this project, then they're going to give me something that I need, instead of looking at, I have more to give, so I want to share what I already have, instead of like, please, 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 if I give you, and it's just like asking someone, if I give you $100, will you give me $100 back? You could have just kept your own money and fed yourself and made sure you were good. That would have possibly put you in a position to make millions, that now you can just give somebody $100 and it's not a big deal. Whereas when you're looking at, well, if I give you two and you give me two, then we're even, we're equal. What part of that is thriving? It's staying stagnant, except you exhausted your energy to help someone else. They may have actually gained, but in the interim, you did not. You still have to go do the stuff you have to do for yourself. You didn't give yourself that space and that permission to take care of you first, to pour into your cup, as it is so graciously said all over the socials and media. In the midst of this process, and when you're really looking at, well, I guess a better question to ask is, how do you know when it's time to transition? How do you know when what you're doing isn't working for you, it's time to transition? And then how can you gracefully do that in a way that allows you to still be moving forward, even if it looks like there's a component or a space of having gone backwards for a moment? What still allows you to keep thriving and moving forward through these transitions once you realize for sure, yeah, it's time to do something different. It's time to level up. It's time to maybe decrease. So that level up, most people assume, okay, level up, do more so you can make more, be more, say more. Sometimes leveling up in that transitional period looks like cutting back on things. It looks like actually decreasing your obligations to other people and even maybe to yourself, and increasing on sitting still. Now, sitting still doesn't mean you have to just like bold face be laid out in the bed doing absolutely nothing, but it can look like you find yourself, people may say, and I know this happens often, hey, what are you up to today? And you may say, oh, I don't have anything going on. Immediately, that other person may say, oh, cool. If they wanted you to do something, not from a place of malice, but great, this person is free. They're available to do what I need them to do. You may not have anything planned, but it doesn't mean that you are automatically immediately available for someone else's plans either. When you're able to notice this, those transitional periods of maybe slowing down from something so that you can rev up for another thing, you don't fill those spaces in with other obligations that are going to take away from the rest that's needed on this next part of your journey. The next part of your journey and your transition requires something new of you that you haven't given before. It requires you to be able to show up in a way that you haven't shown up before, which means you have to do things that you've never done. And for a lot of us, that may look like saying no. It may look like being able to notice, could this raise be a great opportunity? It could be for the person that wants a raise. Well, everybody wants more money. Let's just keep that there, because you can do so much more when you have it versus when you don't. But say someone's offering you this position, this title, but your current goals and things that you're planning in life aren't to acquire new titles. That isn't something that you actually want to do. While it may be great for another person, it's not great for you, because what you're seeking is maybe more freedom, more time integration with your life and your family. It may look like just being able to hang out and not being responsible for other people. If you were to take, for instance, this said promotion, you would be losing some of that. And in this transition, you may be thriving in the sense that you've gained accolades so far as the world and people around you are aware of, but internally, you would have just stifled the growth that you might have been working towards, which was to maybe be responsible for less so you can enjoy the things that you do have access to and that you are currently responsible for in its full entirety. An example of that may look like in thriving through transition, Say you've been someone who has always worked like 60, 80 hours a week, and you have a family, maybe you have a partner, and you decide that you're not going to do that anymore, and you drop it down to 40 hours a week. You thriving through this transition looks like noticing your body tensing up and the anxiety of, I need to be working and doing something, and still choosing not to, and going and spending that time with family because your current goal may have been to spend time with the people you care about and love. On the reverse, if you've had an opportunity to do that and you're deciding, okay, I think I want to level up and pursue a little bit more into my career, that may look like now you have to be very intentional and strategic about the time you spend with the people you care about. And that does mean you'll be saying no to more invitations. You'll be saying no to spending time every time someone invites you. Whereas before, you have the time, you were available, you were here for it. But now you want to create and do something within your career, within your legacy, that requires you to not be available. You're going to start to notice that withdrawal. Oh, everyone's having fun. FOMO starts to kick in this particular transition. And you're like, I'm not having the fun I used to have. Well, not necessarily. Because in this transition, your thriving looks like you being able to delay gratification to move towards the next level that will allow you a deeper, greater level of fun if that is what you are pursuing. So something to think about is, if you're thriving and things are going well, that's great. If it's time for you to make a transition, you can still thrive in the midst of that transition, but be super, super clear on what it is you're working towards, so you don't miss those opportunities to be able to get there either sooner, cut the learning curve, and or just to stay on track in general, and that you don't find yourself substituting your goal for someone else's goal because it looks shinier and prettier. Normally, definitely take this time to ask who's got questions, comments, concerns, or just notice times where you may have done that, where you may have been on a path, it was solid, it was working, FOMO kicked in, or pure exhaustion kicked in, and you either stopped doing everything or went out and tried to do all the things, but found yourself in a position where what you said you were doing, when you go back and recalibrate, what were your goals? What were you transitioning to, for, and from? You found yourself off track because you didn't allow yourself that opportunity to notice the silver lining and the thriving component of your transitions, which meant not doing the same things you always did, but also still creating a new foundational core for what you will be doing. Those transitions don't always feel the best. It's kind of like growing pains. If any of you recall being a child, there was a period in your life where, and I know I definitely felt like I've had multiple ugly phases, quote unquote, in life where I'm like, why do I look this way? And it was just a matter of my body was growing at different times and different things were catching up, even into adulthood. When you're making a journey of whether it's putting on weight, bulking up, or slimming down and toning, there's periods where you're like, I don't think I understand. I'm making the right choices. I'm doing the right things, but this just doesn't look or feel right. Go figure. But if you stick to your plan through that transition, you end up being able to see exactly what you were working towards. And maybe another great example is when people do get pregnant and have babies. I remember my experience is not everyone's experience. For whatever reason, I managed to lose weight at the beginning of all my pregnancies. And then magically it was like, oh, now I just look a little lumpy, until boom, finally it was obvious I was pregnant. Like, that transition, those little people that are taller than me were definitely worth the while, but the process wasn't effortless. And there was a whole lot of things to learn and a whole lot of changes that needed to be made for each round of a new child that I brought into the world, because they definitely came with their own set of needs and requirements. That meant I needed to transition into a different version of myself to be able to show up for them, that is still ever evolving. And anyone that has ever been a parent, is a parent, or even if you have been the great aunties and uncles to other people's children, there's different versions of you that totally change, shift, and morph as the request and demand of your time and attention shows up. And you have to decide, do I have it available to give? And if it's, your child, you have to look at, how can I do this in a way that will work? because you may not feel like you have the time to give. And it means you're probably going to have to say no to something else to say yes to you and the relationships that you do want to build. Well, with that, I see on Instagram, yep, feeling the pain with this exam. Can I tell you, taking those licensing exams, if you've ever taken a standardized licensing exam for any field in the world, there is something so humbling about those when you are someone that is really, really great at the practical work and the presentation of like what the license or certification will afford you. And then having to go take a standardized test that seems, could just be me, but seems like it doesn't relate to what you're going to be doing, but it is the obstacle and the hoop you have to jump through to get there. I've taken real estate. I've taken a lot of different exams, actually, like taking CBEST test and different things to be the teacher, to be a real estate officer, things in cosmetology, like various. If you ever want to know if there's a job I haven't tried, feel free. One day we might just do a live and say, throw out a job and I can tell you if I probably had it, which I probably did, or in some capacity for sure, based on 6 degrees of separation. But in the midst of those tests, it is very humbling to go and take them and then not pass. You know you're smart. You know that you do great work. And I'm speaking specifically to the licensing exam to be a therapist, because some of the other ones I either took them and just it was easier to let it go or let it be, whether I passed or failed. But for this particular one, it was like, no, I'm going to need this license because I really want to be able to do therapy and help people. Going and taking the test, being gassed up, telling everybody, oh, I'm about to do this, and doing things your own way and not following strategic processes that would allow you to be successful on the test. Not successful in how you provide therapy, but successful on taking the test. That transition for me to learn if there is a test and someone has created a study guide that will allow you to effectively take it and pass it, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. And I have no problems anymore with like, oh, you have a better way to do this? By all means, I am not pressed to create all of it all on my own, because when I did that in my earlier years, I spent several years trying to pass a test that shouldn't have been a problem if I would have just followed directions, and taken that transition into not being so ego strong on myself that I could allow the help and support of other people that have already proved that it works. I think the first licensing test, I think I might have passed that one. That wasn't a problem. And this, to just give more reference to this, when I took my licensing test to become a therapist, and I know everybody cares, that's why I'm telling you guys, because I procrastinated, because I was scared, because I had a history of something that was major and pressing, I would procrastinate and push it off. And these were transitions that were every single time, hindsight, I'm like, it wasn't that hard and it wasn't that deep. You should have just went for it. Waited as long as possible to submit my hours. I definitely gained hours as pretty quickly, like not the 2 years, how some people have. And I'm not going to speak on that, but that's them. But I could have taken it at any point in time. But because I chose to do multiple things all at once, so I was trying to take licensing tests, moving and or buying houses, working 3 to 4 jobs, doing a doctorate degree because I clearly didn't have anything else to do. And at the same time, getting certified to be a yoga instructor, and then trying to have relationships and then still have, friends and go party and then raise 2 kids by myself. Like, there was a lot going on. Needless to say, those transitions were not effortless at all. But in the midst of them, I ended up having to take the second licensing test like 2 or 3 times, I think. And the worst part about it is, well, it wasn't the worst. The cool part about my transitions and still being able to thrive through it is that the first time I think I failed the second test, it was by like maybe 11 points. The second time, it was literally by 1 point. It took me that many times to go use someone's specific study guide. And at the time that I did it, they changed the version of the second test. So not only did I have to now learn a whole new thing, but like one that wasn't even going to be familiar. Clearly, I passed it by the third time. But all of that time was that many years of me not noticing the opportunity to thrive in the midst of this transition, as well as having to redo classes over in my doctorate degree because I was freaking burnt out and tired and doing the most and too much. Well, as much as I would like to share a whole lot more about that, some of the negatives or downfalls of transitions and being able to thrive in the midst of them could maybe be an additional topic that we can come to right about next week. What I would like to leave you all with for today is if you're going through a current transition and you know that the work you're doing, the time you're spending, the people you're meeting, maybe the food you're eating, all that stuff, like just make sure this is the thing that you want for you and that you're not chasing someone else's goals. If it's what you want, then when it feels sucky and you're like, this is trash, I'm gonna throw the whole life away, like give yourself a moment to take a deep breath, maybe go take a nap, get a snack, get some tea, get some coffee. I'm about to go refill my cup up now because apparently I drank a whole lot more this morning than I thought. Give yourself permission to chill out. Take a minute, regroup, take a break. Just say yes to you and no to the rest of the world for a moment and decide, is this still what I want to be doing? And if you change your mind, it's your freaking life. As long as you're not hurting nobody else and you're not hurting yourself, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? Nothing. We already know what that looks like. So feel free to grab a hold to some of these transitions that you're going through and find the spaces where you can thrive in the midst of them. Well, I got to go. I hope y'all have an amazing day. Drink all the coffee, tea, and all the things you want going. I'm really going to be exploring some juices here shortly. So I might be reaching out to y'all to find out who's got some great pressed juices because I'm not going to make them at home. I learned I don't need to do that. That's not the best use of my time. But y'all have an amazing day. And I look forward to seeing y'all next week. Who knows? Maybe a pop-up on this Freedom Friday if the freedom's flowing how it's supposed to be. Well, y'all have a great day.